All right, welcome everybody to the second round of our EdTech Dialect series. I don't know, it might even be like the third round, fourth round, but officially we're going to call it the second round, session one. Today we're going to talk to you about student support and ways that the technology that we have, mainly Canvas, can help you support your students. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go into all the different ins and outs and ways that you can make it happen in your different learning environments because an hour would not be enough time for us to cover all those things. But I want to make you aware of these tools. I want to show you a couple examples. I want to maybe get you thinking in a direction for how you can put it to use. And some of this stuff might be old news for you. You probably have been using some of these things, message students who, stuff like that. But maybe somebody could pick up something new, maybe a new idea. Things like that. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to add, maybe you're using this tool and you're using it in a way that you think is pretty sweet and working really well. Well, that's why we're here as well. It's not just for me to spew knowledge at you. It's for you and all of us to share in this session as well. So jump in at any point in time. If we don't get to something that's on my agenda, that's okay. Because that means that we're covering things that are actually pertinent to your learning environments and making it work for you. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to jump right in. First things first, we got to go over the objectives. You got to make sure you have your goals for the day. And so you can see it on the screen there. We're going to learn to quickly analyze participation and grades as far as your students go. Talk about some ways that we can communicate with students efficiently and hopefully effectively. And also understand methods for engaging students in course content and what that looks like. And learn about key features to manage your grades. So we're going to spend a lot of time in the gradebook, the Canvas Gradebook. We're going to spend a lot of time in Speedgrader, and then we're going to spend some time on some different module things and grouping and assignments. And we're also going to look at new analytics in Canvas if you haven't seen that yet. And then just spend a little bit of time, if we have time, in Nearpod and in Teams analytics. But there's not a ton of information on that, so we don't have to spend a lot of time. So first things first, we're going to dive into the gradebook. Like I said, we do a little bit of a gradebook tour. I know that for a lot of you, this is familiar business, but I want to show you some things, show you around. And so here I am. I'm actually in a test course right here, and this test course doesn't have a ton of students and a ton of experience. Obviously, your courses have more students, probably more activities. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. So the first thing is you have different views in your gradebook. You have your view that you're used to. You have a learning mastery. If you don't have outcomes and rubrics with rubrics attached or rubrics and outcomes attached, you're not going to have anything that fills up this learning mastery gradebook. So you probably won't spend a lot of time here. But if you're wondering what that is, that's exactly what this is. So as you're filling out your rubrics, if you apply to your outcomes, your course goals to the rubric, and you use that for grading, this will start to populate to show how effective your students are when it comes to mastering those goals or outcomes, as Canvas calls it. Honestly, like this right here is a whole nother session when we're talking about rubric building, outcome applying, and what that mastery gradebook actually shows. But if we pop out of that view, you can also view the individual view. So if you want to see student by student, you can do that as well. Now, something that always gets me is I'll like hit grades or I'll hit back to go back to the original view, the normal view that we're used to. That doesn't work. You actually have to go up here in the upper right and just click on gradebook, and that will take you back to your regular gradebook. Before I do that, though, there is a new-ish feature that you should be aware of that can be very helpful, just to see past changes that you might have made to your gradebook, and it will line them up for you all right here, and that's the gradebook history. So in terms of helping your students and walking your students, if there's an issue, walking them through something, all of your changes that you've recently made to your gradebook will be available in your gradebook history, including when, who, by who, if you have multiple graders, which most of us don't, the artifact or the assignment, the activity, and then you can see the change that was made or what it was, what it went to, and things like that. So that gradebook history can be very helpful in the event that you have to reference something. So we're going to pop back to the regular gradebook. There we go. And that's the views as far as the different types of gradebook. As far as the views go, this is easy to overlook. You know that you can move around your gradebook columns. So maybe you would like the week 1 quiz to be showing up first in the gradebook. All you have to do is grab that column header and move that around. But if you want to organize them, and I prefer to organize them by module, as in first to last, because chances are that's how your students are going to flow through your class, you can just click on that, and that will automatically move it per your module lineup. If at any point you want to change something, no big deal. You can still change it even if you have it set that way. And you'll notice that your view will go back to just the default order, however you want it to be. There's also filters in the gradebook. And these aren't going to show up until you actually click on them. And you can get them to show up, and you see they're populating up in the upper right-hand corner of my gradebook. And you can actually view different items. So maybe you just want to look at how your students are doing on the week 1 module. You can click on that. That will show only the week 1 module. You're like, what are all these other things, Kevin? Those are my different assignment groups. Those will never go away. We can't make those disappear unless we actually just delete the assignment groups. So that is very easy for you to filter your gradebook. Obviously, if you have student group work, if you have different assignment groups that you just want to view those, you can do that by that as well. Statuses. If you don't like these different labels, so you can see in the gradebook that there's a blue one and there's a red one. If you want to change those, if you don't like those, if you don't like the names of those, you can always go in here and adjust the colors and stuff like that. I said names. I shouldn't have said that because I don't believe you can change the names of them. And then these items here are kind of cool because if you wanted to leave yourself notes on a particular student, and this can be very helpful for a student. So maybe on a certain day, they rolled in and, they told you something about as to why they might not do well in your class or how they might need more support when it comes to something. And you're like, I need to remember that. You can store that right here in the gradebook by showing the notes column. Okay, that's not going to be visible to your students or obviously other students. So it's something that you can enter in there. Additionally, if you want to see unpublished assignments or not see unpublished assignments, you have that option as well. I'm not a huge fan of showing unpublished assignments, but for each different instructor, you may, have a reason why you want to see it or don't want to see it, but just know that you can get rid of it there and it will make it a little bit more decluttered if you get rid of it. Moving over to the actions item, if you ever need to bring in grades from another course, you can do that. And it's very easy to do. I already have, and I thought I had a tab open. There we go. So I have another student, this student Tommy Knocker here. It's a test student. We're going to bring this student into this class that I'm showing you. So the first thing I need to do is export the gradebook. Notice that if I've exported it previously, it will show, but I can actually take this gradebook and send it out. And if I want to bring this gradebook in, I first have to add the student. And so I don't know the student's email off the top of my head, so I'm not going to bother with it. But I can actually then take that export that I just did in the other course and import it into this class. And the cool thing about it is it will actually zero in on all the different assignment types. So if your assignment types, your course items are the same, it will bring those in. Now, it's not going to bring in submissions. So if they submitted something, a file in another class, it's not going to bring that into that class. You'll just have to reference the other class for that. So moving right along to our gradebook tour, we talked about the views, we talked about the actions. I want to talk to you quickly about the gradebook settings. So if I cruise back to the gradebook, up in the upper right-hand corner, this can be kind of confusing for people if they don't know that it exists or they're like, what's going on with this? And there's a couple things I want to explain. So if we click on the settings here, the first one's late policies. That's pretty self-explanatory. You can set it so that students automatically get a grade if assignment's missing. So it doesn't get turned in, boom, 50%. That's a grade. However you set this as. You can also set it to automatically deduct points if something's turned in late. So if a student turns in something 2 days late, you can set for what the deduction is going to be based by hour or by day. So you could say, hey, I want you to deduct 5% for every day that it's missing. And then when the student does finally turn it in, it will automatically, and we'll show this in the speaker, it'll automatically deduct the amount of points.
Kevin,
Yo.
on that, can you do that by assignments or assignment class, or is it a global setting?
It's done by anything that's turned in with a due date.
Okay.
So if you have a due date for it, it's going to apply to it.
Okay. So
now the next item is your grade posting policy. Now you might remember in Canvas there used to be a mute grades or unmute grades. This has taken that place. It actually took the place of it a couple years ago. Basically what this does is it allows you to release grades to your students. So normally when you're in the grade book and I enter a grade for old Said here, just like that, I put that in, Said gets the grade. Okay. All right. 10 out of 10. Good job, Said. All right. With grade posting policy, you can release these grades. So you can go in and do test grades on a column and enter all those grades in and give feedback and all those things. But until you release those grades, the students will not see them. So they can't go and say, hey, you didn't take the exam yet? Well, here's what I got. Here's what I did. Okay. Yes, Heather.
If you do that, does it still calculate it into their overall grade in the class? Like if you entered a score?
I don't believe so. No, it'll actually be muted.
Okay.
So in order to enable that, you can go to your manually post grades. Now, there's two different levels that you can do this on. You can do this for the entire grade book, and you can do it by item. Okay, so maybe you just want to do it for that discussion one that's right here. We could do it for that. If you only wanted to do it by item, you would leave it to automatically post grades. And then you would go to the column header up here, click on the menu dots, and you could put an individual grade posting policy for that assignment. So we'd switch that to manually and we'd save it. So now all these grades that have already been entered, the students have been able to see them. But I come through and I want to grade for Lori Alien. I give Lori a 7, okay? And we see this eye icon. You've seen this eye icon before, I'm guessing, and you wonder, what is it? And maybe you already knew what it was. This tells us that there's a grade in this column that hasn't been released to a student yet. All right. So when we're ready to release those grades to the student, we just click on the menu dots and we post the grades. And just like that, a sidebar will open up and say, hey, how you want to do this? Do we want to do it for everyone or just that's been graded? We'll just do it for everyone. We'll post it. And just like that, Cedric has received their grade. Okay. Elizabeth asked in the chat, what if we want to grant one free day and then start the deductions? I don't know if I'd have to look that one up, but I don't know if there is the ability for the free day. I think if you want to give a free day, you might either have to go into Speedgrader and do that manually, and I'll show you that in a second, or you might just have to adjust your due date. Heather says, what is a Canvas new quiz generates a partial score? You could, for that, in that instance, you might do the manually posting so that you can then release it when it's done. So that's a great question. Yeah, so if you have a quiz, and I think what you mean here is if you have a quiz where you then have to go in and do open-ended questions, essays, stuff like that, you obviously don't want the students getting partial. And I don't think it releases it till you do that anyways. Because technically,
no, it totally does.
It does? Okay.
Because I always get a ton of panicked emails, even though it's plastered everywhere in my Canvas site, that it's going to give them a partial grade.
So that's good to know. So for your quizzes, you might want to go in and apply a grade posting policy and set that to manual. And that way, you know that when you enter scores for your student, that it will not be released to the student until you are ready for it to be released. That's going to be very helpful in helping your students. The last tab here is advanced. If you need to override a final grade, you can do that. So maybe you want to have the option to, if a student, hey, I want to round up their score or do whatever you need to do to their score. All you need to do is go in here into advanced and click on this, and then it will allow you to really put anything you want in the total column in the grade book. Speaking of the total column, at any point in time, you can move that to the front of the grade book, okay, by clicking on the menu dots, and you can arrange it from low to high. You can also move it to the front of the grade book. So if you want to have it, this is great for entering grades, obviously, in like my column, so you can see them all right here. One thing I do want to just kind of emphasize is that the menu dots in these column headings are not possible to be seen until you hover over them. So a lot of times it's easy to overlook that you have all these additional controls. The same can be said about the name header right here in the name column. So you can change how items are sorted. You can also view if a student's been dropped from your class. You can show concluded enrollment. So we see we have a student that was dropped, and if we click on the menu dots, we can actually see that student. And if we want them to go away, we can do that as well. So I know that doesn't really pertain to like messaging students, but you knowing the gradebook and being more efficient in the gradebook and all the tools and tips and tricks is going to help you help your students when it comes to releasing grades and not having them panicked and freaking out, and sorting your gradebook. Speaking of sorting an individual column of the gradebook, if you click on the menu dots, you can actually sort a column. So maybe we want to see for this, actually we'll do it for this quiz here. Maybe we want to see like, hey, who did the best? Not that we're trying to have a competition, but you can see high to low. And if maybe you don't want to see all these items, maybe you just want to see like week 1, you can actually go in here and view only this quiz in your gradebook. And you can see, along with the notes, obviously, but you can see that just that item is showing there. Maybe you want to compare a couple students. You can do that right from here as well. So we see just that quiz, a couple students, and right there we can really get into filtering things in this grade book to kind of zoom in on how particular students are doing on a particular assignment. So I see I have a couple questions rolling in the chat. I'm going to take a minute to take a peek at those. Heather says low to high sort is great for reaching out to students and sending starfish alerts. It allows you to, like I said, zoom in on it and see them right there and move just that particular grade. So you don't have to like hold a ruler up to your screen or something like that, or hold your finger to try and figure out what line or column that you're looking at. Elizabeth asks, is there a way for the new quizzes to show in the grading feed on the Canvas homepage for those that have an essay question that needs? So what Elizabeth is referring to is the to-do list on the homepage of the course. So the students roll in, they see what they still have to do, stuff like that. I don't know the answer to that one, Elizabeth. I still have to refine my knowledge on the new quiz tool. We do have a session coming up towards the end of the term on new quizzes, but I'll keep this question in mind here in the chat and follow up with a for sure answer as to what that is. All right, moving along. So talk about the gradebook settings, column headers, sort by. Message students who. I know a lot of you are aware of message students who and how that works. It's a very efficient tool for connecting with your students. So maybe you have, like for discussion 1, you've noticed that, that's not a good example. Maybe you've noticed that Cedric hasn't turned in the enhancements assignment yet. All you have to do is come in here and click on the message students who, and there's an option to message any students that haven't submitted it yet. So you can roll in, a couple days before the due date and just let students know, hey, friendly reminder, you haven't submitted this yet. You can also change the subject here. So maybe you want something with some emojis, or you just want it to say something different. You can change that here. But I'm going to change it to scored less than. Actually, I want to see this quick. So I'm a very nice instructor, and I allow students to redo work if they didn't get a certain score. So here's the discussion here, and I want to say, hey, whoever didn't get full credit, you can redo this. So for this discussion, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go to message students who, and I'm going to say scored less than a 10. And it's going to pull these 2 students, and it actually shows the score that they have as well. And I can just say, reminder, you can resubmit. Awesome. Okay. Now, the good thing here is that not all the students are going to see like, oh, Lori didn't get above this certain grade and Susie didn't get it. This just goes out individually to each student into their Canvas inbox. It's not going to say like CC'd to so-and-so and CC'd to this person. So it's very private. In addition to the column header, you can also get to message students who, not from here, I got off track. You can also get to message students who from the new analytics that I'm going to show you as well. So stay tuned for that. But our next item that we need to talk about is the Canvas Speedgrader. And this is a great way to give your students feedback. It's available on the Canvas mobile app as well, so you can hang out on your couch from your cell phone and give feedback via the Canvas Speedgrader. But I just want to give you a quick overview because the Speedgrader, and I can get to it from an individual student. I can get to it from a column header here. I can also get to it from the individual assignment area. So if I go to a particular assignment like this enhancements assignment, I can go to the Speedgrader right from there as well. Now, once we're in the Speedgrader, it's going to show any submissions that were attached. It's going to give us a direct link to the assignment with information about the due date, the course that it's in, but it's also going to give us a summary of how our students are doing on this assignment, and it's really up to date. So if I were to change a grade real quick, you pay attention up here, I'll change this grade to a 16, and you're going to see that it will quickly update class average and give us some relevant information as to how our students are doing on a particular assignment. A quick tip on the Speedgrader, if you haven't used the sorting options, so if you go up here to the settings, it's going to give you options for like your overall Speedgrader for that course. I recommend that you sort the student list by submission status. That will keep any new submissions right at the top. Now, I don't have any in this one, but if there were like maybe Lori and Cedric just submitted the assignment, it would show those two right at the top. So you don't have to go, if you have like a 30 student list, you got to go searching through that list every time to find new submissions. It doesn't take a lot of time to do that, but this just kind of speeds things up for you. You'll see a little orange dot up at the top, and it's very easy for you to just click through your different students and the submissions that they have. Okay, and like I said, it's the settings gear, options, and you can change how that list is displayed. If you don't want to see student names, this is also where you will go to check that box, and then you will be able to grade student work anonymously for you. Totally up to you how you do that. And obviously, you're just going to want to make sure that you save those settings. So within the Speedgrader, we have obviously some options. You can sort it. But I want to point out the submission status and some new features that are involved in that area. So you know that a label gets placed if a student turns something in late. If you don't want that label to be there, so maybe like, hey, the student turned it in on paper, and then later submitted it digitally. Well, Canvas is going to say, hey, you submitted that late because this is when we got the submission uploaded. You can always, or you can now, because of a new feature, click on this little pin here, this little pencil, whatever you want to call it, and get rid of that label. Okay, now it's no longer late. You'll also notice that when it was listed as late, we have a late policy attached to this. It automatically deducted points. Okay, this was turned in 0.44 days late. Okay, maybe it was actually turned in 2 days late. Okay, and that will adjust the late penalty right here and be reflected as such down below where the grade is entered. If you have multiple submissions on an assignment, I think that Maryland did, you can easily go through those different submissions. So one was turned in late and one was turned in on time. Don't ask why I have some of the file attachments that I do. I was just scrambling and looking for something to submit, and it just so happened I found the phone directory. So we don't like that Maryland submitted the phone directory, so we're going to really have to hammer Maryland on the rubric that is attached. So if you do have a rubric attached, it will be displayed here, and you can very easily add the points. You can see, I don't know if I have the rubric set up for grading. I might just have it set up for outcomes or goals, which you can do. And so that will be set up, or that will be shown right there and makes it very easy for you to grade. If you want to give feedback to your students, we recommend that. A couple cool things about giving feedback, and this is where it really kind of gets into the communication piece with the students. Obviously, you can type in any feedback that you want. Emojis can be added here. Whatever you want can be added there. But you can also attach, like if you want to attach a file, maybe you have a rubric on a file, maybe you have a write-up on a file, you can do that from here. You can also create a video. If you have a studio video that you created, you can link it here. But there's also something that's easy to overlook, and that's a comment library. So if you have some common feedback items that you'd want to store, you can actually manage comments right from here. And so if you want to add a comment, okay, obviously that's very generic, and yours will probably be so much better. Obviously, you don't want to put student names in the library because it might not be that you're responding to Bill, but if you accidentally put Bill in here and respond to Heather, that might be, not very personable. So we can add that to the library, and you can see at any point in time we can go through here and edit these comments. We can trash these comments. And this little toggle right here is nice because when we go to the comment area and start typing, you did great, it will say, hey, is this what you meant to say? And if it's a big, long one, you don't have to retype it every time. You don't have to go in the comment library. You can just say, yeah, that's the one I want to use. And just like that, you can submit that feedback to the student. Now, you also might have noticed something that popped up is this reassign assignment is now something that I can ask the student to do. So if a student didn't do very well and you give feedback, because you have to give feedback for the reassign option to show up, you can now reassign the assignment. A couple other caveats with this. Obviously, you have to give feedback, got to give a comment, but you also have to have multiple submissions selected in your assignment settings for the reassign to work, obviously. And you also have to have a due date. So those are just some items here. I should also mention that I have a whole list of resources from this session. So if there's something that you want to learn more about, I'm going to be blasting that out after this session as well. So stay tuned for that. And things like reassign and grade policies and things like that will all be included on that. So you don't have to search for them on your own. All right, cruising. So we talked about the rubric, talked about the gradebook settings, late policies, things like that, giving feedback, the comment library, reassign assignment. That gets us through the gradebook, or Speedgrader, I should say. A couple other quick items that I want to show you before we get into the new analytics and any questions that you have. Speaking of questions, looks like Heather's been doing a great. Heather, you can hang out for all my sessions, just answer my questions. Yeah, very, very helpful. Did I miss any though? Are there any?
I don't think so.
Okay. Excellent.
I might know a different answer to the average one, but.
Okay, I'll cruise back.
Calculating averages now.
Okay, I'll follow up on these ones in a little bit. I want to blast through this stuff real quick. So assignment groups, I mentioned assignment groups. Assignment groups can be a great way to kind of categorize things in your gradebook. Obviously, if you want to set up weighting in your class, you can do that from the assignment group area. And that's very easy to get to. You just go to your assignments area. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. And you see the group button up top. These are my different groups that I already have established. If I wanted to move the groups around, I can just click on these menu dots and reorganize those. That they will reflect that in the gradebook. If I want to take an assignment and move it to a different group, I can do that as well. You can see that I already have some items weighted. If I want to change the weight, I can do that just by clicking on edit, and I can change the weight of the gradebook. If I want to drop scores, I can do that from here as well. So maybe you want to drop the lowest score in a particular group, you can do that. Maybe you want to drop the highest score, you can do that as well. Maybe there is an assignment that you never want to drop, even if it's the highest score or the lowest score, you can add that in there and choose which one you want to do, and you can add multiple as well. If you need to add a new group, you just click on new group and you can give it a name and you can add that weight to it. If you don't want to add a weight to it, you don't have to add a weight to it, or you don't have to add a weight to any of them because you can go back through here and change all of those. So you can see if I have any rules about dropping the lowest or the highest score, that will be shown here at the top in the header area. You might want to go over that with your students if you do apply these things. That's a great communication piece. I'm sure that you already do when you're covering that syllabus at the start of your term. So the next item that I want to jump into quick is how to get to your different quiz analysis, breakdowns and analysis. It's a little bit more complicated because of the fact that we have multiple quiz types, especially with the fact that we're moving to a different quiz type. Let me get to, why won't it take me to, there we go. And so I'm just going to show you really quickly how to get to that. I'm not going to show you the breakdown because I do have a Canvas guide piece that I'll be sending out to all of you. But as far as your quizzes go, let me actually close these tabs because I'm not going to use them anymore. Right here is for a classic quiz. That's the old quiz. Chances are that's a quiz that most of you are using. If you want to see the breakdown, once students start taking a quiz, you'll see a new item here in the quiz summary area, and that's quiz statistics. It's going to give you a very generic breakdown by question. I don't have a lot of questions on this quiz. I don't have a lot of students that have taken this quiz. but it's going to show you obviously average score, which is not very good for this quiz. But if you want to get into further breaking down in an item analysis, you click on that and it will generate a file and it will break it down by item. Okay, and there's the student analysis as well, and you can go to that once it generates that, and you can see how each student did and how they did on each question and things like that. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'll let you do that. If you have questions, throw them my way, and I'll help walk you through them. But I do want to go to one of the new quizzes because we will be moving to that tool. We're being forced to move to that tool because the old one's going away. We will be doing a session, as I mentioned, on that, and I don't think I clicked on the right quiz here, one that actually has.
You have to go into build.
Yeah.
And then...
Actually, I think I do have the right one. So if I click on build and I click on reports, you're going to see that there are going to be two different items. Now, the cool thing about new quizzes is you can tie outcomes to specific questions. Your course goals can be tied to a specific question instead of like it was in the classic quiz where you had to tie it to a question bank or the whole quiz. So you can be like, this question is on this goal, which is nice. And they will actually analyze that for you, but I don't have any goals attached to it, so I'm not going to worry about it. But you can also pop into this quiz and item analysis, and it will break down each item that you have. And if you know what you're talking about with these things, it will be very helpful for you to analyze your questions based on how difficult it is compared to the other questions in the whole quiz. But you can really get some good data out of that, okay? So that's how you get to that. Very easy to get to it. You just go to the quiz, click on build, and there's a reports tab right up at the top. So that's that. I'm not going to spend any more time in that. I do want to talk quickly about module enhancements and what you can do because there are some cool things that aren't really being utilized that you can utilize. So one of the things is content pages, and there's two things that you can do with a content page that's going to help to engage your students a little bit more. And one of them is you can require students to view the page. You can also require them to check a box or a toggle button in the page that will not allow them to move past it until they do that. In fact, I had a student in my office on Monday that said, how come I can't move past this? How come I can't view the other content in the module? And just a little admission time on my behalf, I was taking a Canvas Certified Educator course, and I couldn't understand, this was about a year ago, why can't I move through this module? I read the page, I opened the page. Well, I knew that I had to click Mark as done in the content page, but I forgot. And so it just held me up for a little bit, but just a way, I mean, like you still can't force your students to read the content page, but it's a way that you can make sure that they get in, take a look around, and actually have to do something on the page. So, Kevin, how do you do it? Let's do it quick. So I'm going to go back to my test course. Here we go. Learning 101. And all I have to do is it's not something that you set from the content page. So I have a content page right here, week 1 resource. I want to make sure my students see it. And so I go up to the edit for the module, and I am going to require the students to and I got to go find it. It's a page. It's the week 1. What is it? Week 1 objectives. I want them to see it. And you can see that I can either make it just so they click on it and view it, but I can also put a mark as done button on it. So I do that, and I update the module. Okay. And now if I go into student view, because I don't think that it will show for me, if I were to go into student view, it will show that there's a button here. So the students have to actually go into this, click mark as done, and now they can move to the next item. Okay, so just another way for you to kind of engage the content with your students. Like I said, there's no way that you can guarantee they actually do read it, but it might be helpful. Another thing that you can do is, there was already a question on the to-do list Elizabeth asked, how do we get the quiz on the to-do list? You can actually put content pages on your students' to-do list. So the students will see like, hey, I have to look at this resource and actually view it. And to do that, if you go to edit on a content page, and now obviously this doesn't have any content, but down at the bottom, you can check a box to add it to your students' to-do list. So if you want them to make sure that they read something or at least see something, you can add it right there. And you can also put a due date for that. So like coming soon, you better hurry up and read this just like that. For those of you that use mastery paths, You can also include it as a mastery path, or allow it as a mastery path item. And I'll talk about mastery paths here in a second. One other thing with a content page is you can actually allow students to contribute to a content page. So if you wanted to create a content page as like a wiki where they can contribute to it as well and add content to it and help you build your course content, you can click on this down arrow and allow students to contribute and edit the content page as well. So that might be helpful, might be something that you want to use at some point. Once we save it, we'll be good to go. Don't forget to save. And you can see now that it's going to their to-do area. So we're running out of time. I do want to just briefly talk to you about Mastery Paths before we hop into new analytics. Mastery Paths is something that can add supplemental content to push high achieving students, middle achieving students, and lower achieving students. Maybe they did not a supplemental, but a prescriptive item in your course, and based on the grade they get, you want to assign a discussion or you want to assign a content page. You can easily do that. So to just show you quickly, if maybe this enhancements assignments is like a prescriptive assignment. So I'll go in and edit it, and there's a tab up top for Mastery Paths. Based on how the students score, I can assign more content. So they get a 20 out of 14, I can say, hey, go participate in this discussion, okay? They get maybe between 8 and 0, or maybe I don't want it to be 8 and 0. Maybe I want it to be between 4 and 0. I can say, hey, you got to go back through, and where's that page? There it is. You need to go back and read that week 1 resource. And while you're at it, I also want you to redo or do this Canvas Studio submission assignment. But I might also say, hey, you didn't do very well. I want you to go back and either do the week 1 resource or submit this assignment. Okay, so you can change that to and or just by clicking on it. And once we save that, then based on how the student scores, you can assign this to quizzes as well. That will give them additional assignments or supplemental work that they can do. So I think that Mastery Paths are kind of underutilized. They do take more time to set up and arrange, but once you have them built in like a blueprint course, I think it's something that can be very helpful for your students. So already clipped through all these items right here, and now we're on to new analytics. All right. So here we go. What are we at? 20 minutes or so. I'm going to try and buzz through this in about 10 minutes so we have time for discussion, questions, and to get you on your way to your next class. So I'm going to hopefully not talk too fast, but it might come out kind of fast. So if I go to this course, and I don't know why I clicked on the dashboard, but we'll pop right back into it. If we go to the course homepage, you'll find something called New Analytics. And if you haven't been here yet, this is where we can really dive into how your students are doing in your class. Now, I want to preface this by saying it doesn't update frequently or as frequently as some people would like, right, Heather? So you'll see right up here, it was last updated January 25 at 3:04. Well, we know it's not January 25 anymore. It's actually January 26 and it's 12:42. So it's been a minute since this updates, but it does update daily, okay? And there's different tabs at the top. So the first thing we're going to see is the overall course grade, okay? And we can see how students have done on particular course items, quizzes, just by hovering over it and where the course average is. We can get rid of certain items, but we can also compare certain students against a whole section. So we can see where Marilyn is on this week 1 quiz versus the whole section. And we can do multiple students if we wanted to. So I could add Lori as well, and we can see different plots on the chart here. Over to the right, we have an option to do a message students who right from here. So based on the course grade, we can say, hey, any students doing from like 0 to 75, they need a little message, okay? And we can blast out a message just based on the score range for the entire class or how they're doing. Maybe we want to do it based on missing work. We can do that from here, or late work, and we can message students who have late work. Just say, hey, you've been turning in your work late, just a friendly reminder. We can also download CSV files on all this stuff right here. That's something you can explore on your own, and you can change your chart view as well. So that's kind of the big picture view of your class. Very helpful, though. We can also look at weekly activity. Now, I want to define page views versus participation. Page views are just visiting an assignment, looking at the instructions, poking around, seeing what's up. That's going to show you what your page views for a particular item are. Okay, I'm going to get rid of Lori quick and get rid of Marilyn. So we can see based on the class our page views. If we want to see a list view, we can see how many students have viewed it, how many times they viewed it. This is a test course that I've had for quite some time, so there's going to be a lot of page views, but you can check out your course as well. You can also see the particular date range here. If you want to view a more specific range, you can just click on it and you can see a more specific range right then and there and download a CSV file. This stuff is super interactive, so you'll notice as I'm clicking or as I'm hovering over, I can actually click on these different items and I can message students who from here. I can click on just Lori to see Lori's weekly activity for that range. And we'll get into that here in a second. Speaking of the weekly range though, I can bring up, just like I did before, I can bring up specific students. So Marilyn, let's see how you are doing on page views. Participations are actually, they went in and participated with, they submitted an assignment, they took a quiz, they participated in a discussion. You get the idea. And I'll give you more information on what a participation entails as we go. But also keep in mind that if you're worried about a student saying, I went in there to submit something in, you can actually view if they participated with that particular item. So if we move along to the students view, and we have Maryland selected here, but we can see all of our different students, and we can see when their last participation was, okay? Maybe we want to view Lori, or we'll check into Maryland a little more specifically, okay? We can actually go through the course and see, if we click on this weekly online activity, we can say, hey, let's take a look during this date range here, what you actually participated in, okay? And it was just the discussion. That was it, okay? They viewed some things. Yeah, the student went into the assignment, but did they actually submit the assignment? That didn't happen, okay? So when your student comes in and says, hey, I submitted this assignment and it wasn't turned in, you can say, yeah, you viewed it, but you didn't actually submit it. Whether that was a glitch in the system, which is pretty rare, as you all know, or they just actually didn't do it, you can see it right from here, okay? And you can actually download things as well. Keep in mind that there's also the ability to message students who from here. Check this out. So if we're in the student tab and we click on the message students who, notice that we have the message students who. But if we have a specific student, so Lori, that changes to message student. So you can always pop in on a student real quick and you're like, Marilyn, you're struggling. I'm going to click on Marilyn's name. And right from here, you can message Marilyn and only Marilyn. Okay. You don't have to go to the gradebook and cycle through. Makes it very easy. If you want to see a history of how you've communicated with a student, there's a tab for that. Okay. Now I haven't sent Marilyn any messages or anything like that, but if I did, it would all show right here. It'll show, if the student messaged, if the instructor messaged, you get the idea. So we're really breaking down by student, if we click on their participations, and we can see exactly what they've done by each week to get a better idea of what the students participate in and what they're not participating in and how they're doing, and does it reflect how they're doing in the class. The last thing you can do in this new analytics is pull reports. So if you want to see, run a report on all of the missing assignments for a particular course, you can pull that report. If you want to see late assignments and kind of get an idea of why are they doing this one assignment late more frequently than another assignment, you can get a report on that as well. And you can see that there's others as well. And if you're not quite sure what it is and you don't want to listen to what I have to say, it will give you a breakdown of what the report is just by clicking on this little information button right here, and an example of what the report will look like. So I mentioned the missing assignments report. If I click on that, it will actually show you the assignment name, the possible points, when the due date was, when it was unlocked, all that information right there on an Excel spreadsheet. So obviously, like, we could spend a lot more time talking about new analytics and how you can put it to use. I think what really has to happen, and your courses are going to be a lot better than my test course, where I actually have to go into each test student and submit things, and then I have to go back as myself and grade things and give feedback on things. You have all those things in your courses, so you're going to get a better idea as you click through the different items, which each one is. Don't forget that you can message students any step along the way. No matter what tab you are on, you are going to see the message students who, and allows you different items depending on which item you're in, okay? And so that's pretty much what I have. I had some information on Nearpod, but we're running out of time. If you want to know more about Nearpod analytics, I do have an example PDF of, if you do run Nearpod sessions, of how much information that they will give you based on the items that you have in your Nearpods, and how the students answer, and the breakdowns and things like that. That can be very helpful to see where your students are at, for those of you that use that. There's also some Teams analytics that you can jump into. They're not very robust because we don't use Teams for our LMS. Obviously, we use Canvas for that. But if you just want to see who's participating in meetings and things like that, Teams does have some pretty basic information. So, are there any items that you'd like to add? Maybe how you're using new analytics, maybe how you're using the gradebook with posting policies and stuff like that. And I'm going to take a look at the chat at this time as well, because there's a lot of things in here, a lot of messages. Anyone?
Hey, Kevin.
Greta, what's up?
Yeah. I do the one where it says message students who didn't do this or didn't do that, but I do change the subject line to include the word yet. So they'll say so-and-so didn't turn in something, but then I add the word yet, just because I want to let them know that that is going to happen, but that they haven't missed it either, because sometimes I'd send those notifications out and they'd get freaked out. And so I just like to be able to manipulate the subject line just so that they have an idea of that it's pending, I guess I should say.
That's a great example. For those of you that don't know, Greta is an OG when it comes to message students who. One of my first memories here at the college of message students who was a conversation with Greta, and how Greta, you use it for discussions, right? To kind of remind them that a discussion is nearing. And papers. I mean, yes. Basically anything that is due. So if I have a 11:59 due date on Sunday, I message anyone who's missing something on Saturday, so that it's not the same day, so that they at least have like a 24-hour, I better get this done kind of thing. And that's very kind of you, but it's also, helping your students out as well, and probably helping yourself out, because when we go to grade, we want to grade everything and give feedback on everything rather than trying to get more to be turned in. But that's a great point, adding, when it comes to changing the subject heading, something as simple as adding the word yet kind of just is a great way to communicate with your students and let them know that, hey, it's missing still, and, hopefully they can get it turned in. So that's a great ad right there. And then you can get more creative as time goes on. Like, this is my traditional ENAG, yeah. I do the same message over and over again for a while, but then I see the same people, and so I'm like, hello, it's me again, or whatever, and no one's complained about it. So, and I tend to get more stuff turned in that way, so it's a win-win. Yes. As far as automation goes, Elizabeth just asked in the chat if you could automate that. Unfortunately, you can't. But what you could do is just do a generic reminder in Outlook, and you can schedule your Outlook mail to be sent at a later date. Obviously, that's not going to message students who, but it might just be a reminder that you sent out. And you can also do it as an announcement as well in your Canvas course, like, hey, just a reminder, and you could schedule those. You can schedule an announcement to post as well. So not as individualized, but another way, if you wanted to schedule it, Elizabeth, those are some tools that you could use. All right. Who else has something? We have a couple minutes left. I know some of you are off and running to your 1 o'clock, but I want to thank you for attending this session. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of different ways you can use it. And if at any point you use new analytics and it works with a student, if you use a message students who in a different way, you sharing that is not like boastful and bragging. You might be helping somebody else out. Okay, you might help me help others help out, and I will be sure to cite my sources if you give me a good idea. I promise. Okay, because that's gonna really help all of us out, and you get a little chance to brag, which is good because you work hard and you deserve it, right? So that's all I have. Thank you for attending. The recording will be posted, as I mentioned, as well. I'll be sending out a bunch of resources. I will be circling back to the chat, so if I didn't answer your question yet, maybe I can't answer your question. I got to look up some more things, but after this session, I'll take a look. But Heather did a great job, it looks like, of giving some replies. And I love that Teams chat allows you to reply to specific chat messages. I was in a Zoom meeting yesterday, and all I wanted to do was reply to specific items, and I couldn't do it. So that's a shameless, or not a shameless, but that's just a little Teams plug. Not that you needed that from me. So thanks for attending. We'll see ya. Have a great rest of your warm and don't get a sunburn. Warm Wednesday.